We live in challenging times. Because of the actions of the Trump administration, they are threatening our health care, our air, our water, our liberty. Because of my service on the Appropriations Committee and co-chairing the Health Subcommittee, serving on Judiciary and Environment, I'm prepared for that challenge. First, I'm experienced. And what does experience mean? Is it about duration? Does it mean, well, if you're just there, you've got it? No, not with me. It means that you delve into the details, that you follow and identify and spot problems, that you can pull together people to develop a remedy for those problems, and that you have the tenacity to make it happen. I have done it again and again and again. Second, I have experience in the district. First, as the alder for the 23rd Ward in West River, and then as the state representative representing Upper Westville down to Dwight.
About 10 seconds left for the open statement.
Third, thank you for being here. I'm ready.
Justin Farmer, you've got 90 seconds.
Good afternoon, good evening. It is good to be in community. I heard some people saying I need more experience. So I'm happy to inform y'all I'm no longer 31, but I am 32. All jokes aside, right? At 22 years young, I decided to run because I was tired of the lie that we've been telling each other. For the last decade, we have lost as a Democratic Party because we are unwilling to have hard conversations that are not very hard. The complexities and the challenges that we face today, we have been facing for centuries, and I think it's time that we are more diverse than ever in a city that is 72, almost 73% people of color. There are certain conversations we have to have, right? And so, right, politics is an individual team sport. There are 151 state reps, and we want slow and steady. There's 150, right? There's 130 other state reps that would do that, right? Not to bad some of y'all, right? But, right, the lived experience is also important in shaping policy. And so I think it's time that we have those conversations.
About 10 seconds.
And so I'm looking forward to doing that with you all.
Hi everybody, thank you so much for being here. It's so amazing to see such a huge crowd. It's just a testament to how much our community cares about our city and the future of our neighborhoods and our state. I think right now we are facing three major crises in our city, in our state, in our country. There's a crisis of the cost of living, a crisis that is asking families every day whether we're going to be able to afford to stay in our community. There's a crisis in our school system that is questioning whether we're going to be able to provide the educational resources that our kids deserve every single day in the classroom. And there's a crisis at the federal level where our federal government is attacking our most vulnerable neighbors and threatening our communities. And I think the question in this race is, do we think that Connecticut can do better? Do we believe that Connecticut can be more in this moment? And I'm running for state rep because I believe the answer to that question is yes. I have, for the past 8 years, been working in Hartford at the state capitol, first helping run the Progressive Caucus in the legislature, more recently as an advocate at Connecticut Voice for Children. In those jobs, my role has been to be in the fight and try to push our state government to do more and be better, to fund our schools, to lower the cost of living, and to protect our community from the federal government. That's the work that I want to do as our state rep, along with all of you, and I think that in this critical moment, we need some new fight to get that job done. Thank you.
We made it through the first part. Let's go to the next one. Okay, so now I'm going to ask all the candidates to respond to the same question, and we're going to alternate as to who gets to go first. So I'm going to start with Representative Dillon, and Representative Dillon will have a minute to respond, and then Trustee Farmer will have a minute, and then Eva Sable will have a minute. This first question is about education and education funding. So my colleague Laura Gillespie reported on how Governor Ned Lamont came to Lyric Hall yesterday to speak to Greater Westville Indivisible. And among other arguments, he made the case that more money from the state does not necessarily equal a higher quality education in New Haven. He said, to quote, "It's not always about more money, sometimes it's about doing things that matter." In Fairhaven today, the city's teachers union stood alongside Josh Elliott, the Hampton state representative who's challenging Ned Lamont for governor, and they supported him for calling for more money for the city school district, for a whole bunch of other causes, but that was one of them. Josh Elliott said, "Greenwich can't solve this problem, New Haven can't solve this problem, but the state can solve this problem." So my question for you, Representative Dillon, is around what you see as the imperative for state legislature from the 92nd District around education funding. What would you fight for? What do you think New Haven needs from a state representative around improving our public schools?
Thank you very much. I think we do need more money, number one. And I'm not quite sure, I'm sorry I wasn't present when the governor said that. But I do think it's true that money is not enough. We delivered about 22 million extra this year, but the dollars that we delivered simply by forgiving the problems in the school construction program that were faulted in the audits, which added to somewhere between 20 and 30 million, they're not finished yet. We had language in there that said that waived the liability of the city. And that was something that caused a problem last year where it looked like the governor's people wanted 35 million back. So I think as someone who's actually trained to be a teacher at one point, I do think that the right resources have to be there. But I also believe that the dollars need to be administered well.
And maybe and that was a minute on the mark, but maybe we'll push it to like 75 seconds, because I feel like we've got the time, and I think that people have a lot to say. Justin, should the state legislature, should state government be sending more money to New Haven public schools, or is the imperative for a state legislator to advocate for how that money is used and to improve the way it's used? What do you see as your vision for a better public school system in New Haven and the role of the state representative? Sure.
Can you hear me now? Great. And always feel free to tell me to speak up. I'm somehow loud and quiet at the same time. We need more funding for schools, period. Easy, right? As someone who had to get themselves back into school, right, ECS is unequally funded, right? And whether you're talking about New Haven or Hampton, we're talking about tens of $millions we're short every single year, which means we have to choose which students will fail and succeed. I was one of those students that would have failed, and if I did not have the resources of people around me, right, I wouldn't have been able to get myself back into school, get out of special education, have that education. And so we have to have honest conversations at the local level about when and how we spend that money. But yes, simplistically, we do need more money.
And since you've got 10 seconds, how would you get more money for New Haven?
Capital gains, abolish the fiscal rails, tax giants, so on and so forth. Where there's a will, there is a way.
Eli Sabin, education funding and the role of the state representative. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I think this is the defining challenge facing New Haven and our state really right now, because we, for decades, have had an education funding system that divides our communities up into different towns that have wildly unequal and disparate school systems, and also that leads to wildly different tax rates, and that has such a big impact on the cost of living here in our city because our property taxes are so high, in part because we're desperately trying to fund our schools based off of our property taxes because we're not receiving the resources that we need from the state. over the past almost 15 years, the education cost-sharing grant, which our state legislators have fought very hard for, had the foundation grant that's been basically frozen at a little over $11,000 since 2013. There was a boost to around $13,000 this year, but we have to increase the funding up to what it would be if it had risen with inflation, which would be around $16,000 per student. That would bring around $50 million more every year to our schools.
10 seconds.
But I think the critical piece of it is not just to ask for more funding, but also to try to improve transparency and make us all feel confident, including especially the governor, that the money is being spent well and it's reaching the classroom.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And Pat, you wanted to provide a 30-second response?
I simply wanted to add that we're focusing on ECS, but the drivers of the money that's actually hurting the city are the spike in special ed and also the cost of transportation, which are related. We need to take those on in addition to ECS. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I've solicited a whole bunch of questions from readers, from commenters who've sent them in, so I'm going to ask a bunch of those too. And I was about to ask one, but it looks like Eli wants to respond as well for your first 30-second response.
Yes, I just wanted to respond to that because one of the roles that I want our state legislature to play more is to help provide guidance and improve the transparency and the long-term financial planning in our school districts. I think for a long time we have had the state government cut checks to our district, but I have felt over and over, I was the chair of the education committee on the Board of Aldermen for 2 years, and I felt over and over that there's a lack of confidence in how the money gets spent. And I think that we need our state legislators to lead now on both fighting for more money and also fighting to make sure that the money is being spent well. And I think that is an obligation of our state government.
And Justin wants it. Okay, so everyone use the first 30-second rebuttal. Justin, you've got 30 seconds. Go.
Daily double, right? It's a cultural issue. There are people in our community who believe that if they learn next to me or Jamal or Pookie, that their child won't get into Harvard and they will have to face the deficit of their kid going to UChicago, right? The reason why we don't have school buses and we're spending extra money on buses is because we prioritize sports over education. It is a cultural issue.
Okay, thank you, Justin. Okay, since we're talking education, I'm going to ask our first reader submitted question. This is from independent commenter Newbie on this topic of schools. How would you address the fact that Connecticut schools were recently named the 11th most segregated in the country? Justin Farmer, if you could take this one first, and then we'll go to Eli Sabin and Representative Dillon, but talking about racial segregation in schools.
Yeah, I always tell people I'm a proud Black Panther. Shout out to the Spring Glen Panthers, right? There are very few Black kids at Spring Glen Elementary School, and that is because I had to pass 3 elementary schools to go to Spring Glen because our idea of segregation, right? We'll have a school like Alice Peck that's almost 75% people, Black, Hispanic, Asian, white, and yet to the state that is racially imbalanced, right? Because it is over a majority in terms of kids of color, even though they're almost equally astute, right? It is the super silly, farcical arguments about equity versus equality, and we have to be serious if we want to tackle the issues of racial disparity. It requires equity.
10 seconds. Thank you. Eli, if you talk specifically about racial segregation in schools.
I think that the segregation in our schools, it is also connected obviously to the segregation in housing across our state. But I think what it's going to demand is a hard look at the laws that are on the books right now, and especially the doctrine that's come out of the Sheff v. O'Neill, the major racial segregation lawsuit in the 90s. Coming out of that lawsuit, there was an effort to try to use magnet schools to desegregate our schools. That clearly has not worked. We also, as Justin was just talking about, we have a racial segregation law that is only focused on racial segregation within districts rather than between districts, and that needs to be overhauled and looked at, because right now we are not going to desegregate our state by only moving kids around our urban centers and our communities around the state. We need to make sure that we are helping communities bridge these municipal boundaries that are dividing our state and keeping our children from being able to thrive.
And Representative Dillon addressed the issue of racial segregation in schools.
Well, clearly it's related to the segregation in zoning and in housing. But I think we need to have some humility that the remedies of the past sometimes become the problems of the future. And charter schools were a compromise, if I recall correctly, because the votes were there to do vouchers. And now people are very concerned that charter schools are competing for resources with our other public institutions. So I simply want to think about how we're going to do that. The housing initiatives became very inflammatory up in Hartford. But having said that, as a mother, we live a block from Edgewood School. My son I walked him down there, and he would take a bus down to Halleck Street or up to West Hills.
All right, let's talk about housing for our next question. And this is another reader submitted question from Rachel. The cost of housing. We know that the cost of housing is the primary reason for homelessness in New Haven. What initiatives would you undertake to help solve this problem? Eli Sabin, you start first to talk about addressing the cost of housing and particularly its relationship to homelessness.
Thank you. A couple weeks ago, I was knocking on doors in Edgewood, and I talked to a single mom who was trying to figure out how to pay off her back rent because she was worried about getting evicted. And those are the conversations that I have with folks every single day when I'm knocking on doors across our district and across the city. And I think what it's going to take is a new courage and creativity to make sure that we're requiring every town across the state to actually build more affordable housing. The work that I've done at Connecticut Voice for Children over the past 5 years has been to lead on housing issues and to try to build coalitions to bring towns and rural communities and our cities together to help us reach solutions on housing policy. It's incredibly difficult and complicated, but we have to make our state lead to push our towns across Connecticut to do more. We are trying our best in New Haven, but it's going to require suburbs and rural towns to do more to build affordable housing, and it's going to take investment as well from the state.
Thank you. Representative Dillon, you speak to addressing the cost of housing and also the relationship between housing and the cost of housing and homelessness.
I think I would like to see some evidence on the New Haven level about the kinds of housing that we have actually constructed in New Haven. Because it seemed to me that some of it was studios and one families, and that one bedrooms, and that means we were not addressing the needs of families with children. And in Edgewood in particular, but elsewhere, we're losing residential capacity. Because when we place people in the community, they're used for group homes, they're used for sober homes. It's not a bad thing, but they are formerly residences. So at the same time we talk about the suburbs, I think we need to look at what we've done in our own city and seeing whether we have a policy that makes it child-friendly and that builds units that are suitable for families with children.
Justin, how cost of housing, homelessness, and what a state legislator for the 9th Second District should do about it.
Yeah, as a suburban legislator, right? My family got gentrified out of New Haven, so despite us being neighbors when I was 5 blocks from each other in East Rock, we were in Newhall, where all the gun violence is and has been, right? So when I was 19, I organized in New Haven for the Homeless Bill of Rights. When I was 24, we organized to get right to counsel set up, right, to get the Hampton Tennis set up, to get right predatory towing under its wing, right? So I've been always organized around housing because my mom always engraved in my head, the most important thing is roof over their head. And that's where we always start our conversations. We go to the homes of the people who are first affected
10 seconds.
because they are the experts on their lives and what is acceptable in terms of housing conditions.
To start with Representative Dillon, we're going to stay on housing and talk about 830G for a second. Mr. Justin Farmer, thrilled to talk about that again. Everyone should check out the debate that Paul hosted on Dateline New Haven, where there's a very substantive, interesting debate around what a Yale law professor who wrote an op-ed for us, Nika Singamar, called Connecticut's most effective affordable housing law. I State Representative Dillon, I would love to hear both your thoughts on how 830G is working now in terms of encouraging New Haven suburbs to create more affordable housing, and are there changes that you think should be made to it, or how much of a priority should a New Haven state legislator from the 92nd District place on making sure that the suburbs build more housing?
Thank you for the question. I think 830G is fine. It was a very difficult fight to get that into statute to begin with. There may very well be some issues with it. The issue is, though, that there are people who literally ran for office promising to get it repealed because they don't want their communities to have more economic diversity. And I think that's a real problem. So that I would not personally change 830G except to make it tougher. What happened in New Jersey was pretty good, but if I recall, it was imposed by the courts. And so that's an issue. Thank you.
Thank you. And in the 20 seconds, how much of a priority do you think, if re-elected, the 92nd District state rep should place on making sure that suburbs outside of your district are building housing? How urgent of a problem do you see that as a representative for this district?
Well, there's one right next door to the 92nd District where there was quite a dispute about affordable housing, and I believe that they ended up building large units, and then they sealed up the law. So I think we should play a role, but they're going to tell us to do something. I mean, we have to work together sooner or later, but it's not fair. It's embarrassing.
Justin Farmer, how is 830G working now? What changes, if any, do you think should be made to it? And tell me about the urgency that you see around the state legislator from New Haven acting on this issue of making sure the suburbs build housing.
Yeah, as a suburban legislator, it is a farcical argument. I'll trickle down on the argument, right? 5 years ago, I went down to New York City, met with Charles Barron, State Assembly, met with Representative Porter to talk about affordable housing. There's a difference between the AMI, the Area Median Income, and the neighborhood band. Neighborhood band, housing development in Newhall, where my family is, right, for $40,000 is not affordable when most of the people in the neighborhood make somewhere between 28 and 34, and high-earning families make 54. It is a farcical argument. Also, when I ran for state senate 6 years ago in Woodbridge, Beacon Falls, Bethany, right, I got 43% of the vote running on right to council and social housing. So we gotta work and talk to our neighbors, as Pat said, because either they're about it or they're not, but they seem to have been about it.
Thank you. Eli Sager.
I think that housing segregation in our state is an incredibly important civil rights issue of our time, and 830G, which for context, it requires that every town in the state try to get to 10% affordable housing, and it means that if you don't have 10% affordable housing, then you need to allow new developments that have 30% affordable housing to get built in your community. It is one of the only reasons that any affordable housing is getting built in towns like Greenwich or Cheshire or Darien, and it is incredibly important. It needs to be protected. I think that the work that we need to do to move beyond just that framework is to expand our state's investment and commitment to affordable housing, so that we can build more affordable housing here in our city in New Haven, so that we can fund mixed income projects across our community and more affordable units, especially for families, and also to continue to protect 830G and make sure that there are more projects that are getting built that have affordable housing and allow people across our state to have access to communities that they've been locked out of for generations.
Thank you. Justin Farmer wants to use a second, 30-second rebuttal. All right, Justin, go for it.
There is a letter of the law and the spirit of the law. There are 38 municipalities out of 169 that actually follow 830G. The majority of these communities count multi-families as affordable housing. They don't. Most of these communities, including here, have problems with EDUs, accessory dwelling units, which is why the homeless community that has tiny homes in a backyard still do not have actual electricity and heat, because this city refuses to take care of people who are unhoused.
This next question, Justin, is the one who's going to start. legalization of adult use cannabis. So, the state legislature legalized it. There are a few dispensaries around town, including in the district. I know that one of the biggest challenges that city government has wrestled with in recent years is the proliferation of smoke shops, many of which sell pot illegally. I wonder what you think, given the role that the state legislature plays in regulating the cannabis industry, what do you think of how the legalization of adult use pot is going so far, and what changes to either the retail end or the social equity kind of business production end? What changes do you think need to be made, if any, to cannabis laws?
Yeah, it's a racket, right? As a person who does not drink, smoke, do devices, right? I'm not here to judge people what they do in their wine cave or on the corner, right? But I will give people smoke, right? So we need the bread and the roses. So if I need $1 million, right, liquid to open up a cannabis dispensary for medical marijuana, half the time it's moldy and we have people having respiratory infections. But most of the people who own these businesses are conservative police officers or politicians that lied to our face and locked up our family members. Yeah, we need a new framework. So the legislation I want to propose is having smoker lounges. It gets people off the corners, right? We can lower the thresholds. We can have security to actually control the environments, and then our kids aren't seeing the foolishness. That is my proposal, right? But some people are going to lose money who are poverty pimps, and I'm okay with that.
Thank you, Justin. How is the legalization of adult use cannabis going so far, and what changes would you advocate for if elected? See that?
I absolutely support decriminalization and legalization. I think though that as I've been knocking on doors across our district and talking to a lot of folks, especially in Westville, there's so much frustration about the proliferation of the vape shops and smoke shops, especially in Westville Village. And I think that we should have a no tolerance policy of smoke shops that are selling illegal cannabis products. They should not be open anymore. It should just be, that is not what they're for, and they should be shut down immediately. And overall, I think that we should continue to regulate the market and make sure that we are trying to get kids, especially, away from these products and keeping them away from anybody who is vulnerable to their use. So that would be my approach.
Thank you very much. Representative Dillon, how is legalization going so far, and what changes do you think should be made to laws, if any?
I voted to decriminalize because I believed the law was applied unequally depending on what zip code you lived in. And I still do. And so, but having said that, I'm afraid we're going down the road where we're treating it like we did with alcohol. Alcohol and tobacco are regulated by the Treasury Department, not by the FDA, because they were seen as a revenue item and nobody was looking at the health effects. And if you look at the economy of Westville, it's what, nips and vapes? No. We've got to have an economic model that provides jobs for young people. And that's going to involve hands-on involvement by the city. And I know the Alders are working on the vape shop issue. And I know it's tough. But it's nips and vapes all over. We can't grow on addiction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to ask a few questions that I think get at some kind of bigger picture challenges within the Democratic Party, given that this is a primary among the three Democrats, and given how overwhelmingly Democratic behavior is. I'm curious to hear what you all have to say about it. And Representative Dillon is the first to answer this question, and actually the question's going to be a little bit different for Justin Farmer and USA as it gets at age and experience. So one of the questions submitted by a reader, NHIND123, is for Representative Dillon. A lot is being made of age and experience in this primary. What makes your experience an asset to you in representing the 92nd District? And then Jane, another reader, asked, if elected, Pat, do you have a plan to work on mentoring a successor? And if so, what is your plan to mentor a successor? So maybe we'll take a minute and a half, but I wonder if you could speak to both what you think your age and experience brings to your candidacy and what you make of that question around mentoring a successor.
Thank you very much. I think I addressed some of that in my opening remarks, that I don't think that experience is just about the duration of your tenure. It's about what you make of it. I mean, there are people who don't produce much in 5 or 6 years, and people who produce a lot. And we age differently. It really varies. I can actually look at some of the statutes, and I know when I look at what Robert Kennedy did to the health budget on April 1st a year ago, I know what parts of our budget were affected immediately and what we have to do to fix it. And I think that's a tremendous advantage. And in terms of mentoring, if we all mentor, and except that I think when I was deciding whether or not to run again, I asked a couple of people and they said, well, why don't you choose someone? And I was like, wait, we have a district full of talent. And it's a brown plurality district and has been ever since I've served it. So I would think there would be an expectation, but we also have public financing. I thought I mentored a couple of people. It didn't work out as well as I thought it would. Anybody has an opportunity to work with us. That's one of the best ways to mentor.
Thank you, Representative Dillon. Since that question was so specifically tailored to that, a little bit of a different one, but related for both Justin Farmer and Eli Sabin, and it's in the really hours before this debate took place, Westville Alder Adam Marchand sent out an email to constituents in which he endorsed Pat Dillon for re-election, and he wrote about why. And then for Eli and Justin, he wrote, I applaud Eli Sabin and Justin Farmer for their desire to serve. I know that both value their contributions to the community, but in my judgment, they cannot match the knowledge and relationships that Pat has built, and this difference in experience is crucial in these times. So I gave Representative Dillon a minute and a half to address this, but I wonder if both Justin and Eli could speak to that, to both Adam Marchand's specific endorsement around how the knowledge and experience that Representative Dillon has from being in this role for as long as she has been is difficult to replicate, and the reason why he's back here. So, Justin Farmer, what do you say to that?
Might be a rebuttal. That's okay. I started politics at 22 because I was annoyed with where we are, or where I thought we would be, which is where we are. Right? At 23 years young, right, I ran for office, won by 23 votes, 5 over the mandatory recount, represented the 5th district. In the 6 years I was elected, I mentored 5 people into office, 3 of them older than me, 2 of them younger than me, 3 of them women, 3 of them people of color, 3 of them are still in office. The 2 that are not in office, one is in medical school, one is in law school, wrote the letter of recommendation for them. They are older than me. And one of them now is a state rep. So the Democratic Party does not actually approach and build leadership. And so if I can do it in Newhall, I have to look at people who've been in the room for decades, years. What have you been doing? Because if I figured it out, either I'm a special star, I am as lucky as Forrest Gump, or I actually understand what I'm doing. And I understand that politics is an individual team sport, right? It's not about me, it's about us. And so if we want to change that dynamic, we need to build up the bench, and that is always what I've done.
And we've got 90 seconds to respond to that. We don't have the knowledge and relationships to fill Pat's shoes.
I'll just start by saying that I have so much respect for the work that Representative Dillon has done serving this district over the years. These are jobs that do not come with a lot of accolades or praise or anything, a lot of late nights up in Hartford, and it is amazing the work that she's done. And so I'm very grateful and have deep respect for her service. I've spent the last 8 legislative sessions working up at the state capitol. I helped run the Progressive Caucus for 3 years. For the past 5 years, I've been the legislative coordinator at Connecticut Voice for Children. Every day I've gone up to the state capitol, I've tried to bring the the voices and the stories of everybody in our community that I hear every single day knocking on doors to the fight. And what I think that we need right now in this moment to try to fund our schools, to lower the cost of living, to stand up to the Trump administration is some new energy, some new ideas. And somebody's going to be out in the community every single day trying to bring our community together and build coalitions in New Haven and across the state between our cities and the suburbs and our rural towns to solve the big challenges that we're facing in the state. Because I don't think that Connecticut is doing enough right now. I think we need to do more and we can be better, but it's going to take some new fight, and that's what I'm hoping to bring to represent this district. Thank you.
I guess I object to a question that focused only on my qualifications and my age. And I'm not aware that there's a question that focuses on any criticisms of my two opponents, and which I won't go into right now. But I think that that's a disadvantage, and there's rarely been a discussion of policy. There has always been a discussion of age, and it's a disservice to the people of the community.
Okay, and the next question is going to kick off with Justin Farmer, and then to Eli and Pat. And this gets at how big of a tent the Democratic Party should be. Now, you were recently endorsed by Democratic Socialists of America, and obviously a lot of momentum for TSA with the Sarkozy win, the Statler's Democratic Socialists, Washington, D.C. mayoral primaries won by Democratic Socialists, all those 3 congressional seats. So a lot of momentum in the world of DSA and the left of the Democratic Party. So this is a reader-submitted question from John Lockhart, someone who's very skeptical of the DSA. So he writes as, considering the concern many moderate Democrats have toward the recent gains of openly socialist candidates, do you believe it's prudent to associate with and or work openly with the Marxist, Leninist, and Maoist factions of the DSA, or even farther left factions like CPUSA? Should the Connecticut Democrats potentially circle the wagons against these parties? My favorite, Max B, responds to that with boo! But I would love to hear your thoughts on both what the TSA endorsement means for you and what you think a big tent Democratic Party looks like, and if there are red lines around, I don't know, socialists running within the Democratic Party for seats like this.
Yeah, I mean, I am a founding member of Connecticut DSA, right? Again, I'm 23 years young, while Democratic insiders did not support me while I worked on all their campaigns, right? We got together, we organized in my community, representing the richest people in town, the poorest people in town, and the suburbs. We built power. 5 years ago, right, I went down to New York City, met with DSA electeds. At the time, there's a guy from Astoria who walked us around for 5 hours. His name was Zoran Adani. He wasn't even the most important person in the room at that time, but he had been building power, same as I, right? 3 years ago, we went down to DC. There's this woman, Denise George Lewis. She's about to be the mayor of DC, right? We have been building power. We have been winning. We have been moving policy. So if the Democratic Party doesn't want to deliver for people, that's their issue, but we are a part of the community too. So figure out a Big Ten or draw a red line.
Your thoughts on DSA and DSA's role in the Democratic Party, and also your thoughts on how big of a tent the Democratic Party in New Haven nationwide should be.
Look, I think that we all know that we are in a crisis moment as a country, and here in New Haven, we've all been talking about funding crisis in our schools, how the cost of living keeps going up, and so I think this is an all hands on deck moment, and so I absolutely welcome everybody who cares about our community and who knows that we can build a better society and believes deeply in providing affordable housing and good jobs and affordable health care to everyone, protecting our immigrant families. And so I absolutely do not think we are in a moment to be casting anybody out of the tent. We need to be bringing more people into the tent to build power so we can take back the country and also make Connecticut live up to our values. We are so far from the state that we can and should be as one of the wealthiest states in the country, but also one of the most unequal and the most segregated. And the work that I did going back a few years, helping run the Progressive Caucus, was about that work of bringing new voices into the legislature and making sure our communities are heard at the state capitol.
Thank you very much. Representative Dillon, role of GSA, Democratic Socialist America, the party, and Big Ted.
And I actually belonged to the Socialist Caucus long ago of the Democratic Party. I think they were quite different from the GSA. And so I don't think I have the authority to judge, but I'm sure that there are elements of parts of that coalition that I probably would disagree with, but that's true within the Democratic Party anyway, and so that's fine. I don't have a problem with that at all.
Thank you, Representative Dillon. Okay, this question is first for Eli Sabin, and then Representative Dillon, and for Justin Farmer. It's the last of the kind of big picture Democratic Party questions, but the great relationship destroyer within the Democratic Party is the questions around Israel and Gaza and anti-Semitism. And why I ask about this at a state rep debate is a reasonable question, but as you know, Eli came up during your time in the Board of Alders. There was a ceasefire resolution before the board. You voted in the majority to essentially stop further debate around the resolution and preventing a potential up or down vote. The state legislature debated as part of an emergency certification bill in February whether or not to create a working group to combat anti-Semitism in education, and clearly this is an incredibly important and divisive issue within the Democratic Party right now. And so I wonder, Eli Sabin, if you could reflect on both the vote that you took as an alder, what role, if any, you think you should play as a state legislator in being a leader or responding to constituents' concerns around the relationship between Connecticut and the state of Israel and combating anti-Semitism and protecting Palestinians.
Thank you. So the vote that we had on the Board of Alders, I just want to address quickly. So there was a resolution that came forward. It was a few months after October 7th. It was developed without really any conversations within our community, and I read it through. Actually, I read it through again last week after there was an op-ed published about this, and I found myself actually basically agreeing with everything in it. And I look back to why I thought that it made sense to read and file the item in that moment was because it was, again, 3 months after October 7th, and the resolution did not mention Hamas at all, which I thought was wrong, because I think that if we're going to build a more peaceful world, we have to acknowledge the pain and suffering that is on all sides of the conflict, and we have to take accountability as well for our role as Americans. So I am just deeply horrified by the violence in Israel and Gaza and the West Bank and in Palestine, and I believe that we need to do more to bring our community together around this issue to make sure that the role that our community in New Haven and as a state of Connecticut and as a country is to bring forward peace as much as possible.
Thank you. Eli Sabin. Representative Dillon, if you want to talk about that vote on the emergency certification bill, or the role that you think a state legislator from New Haven should play in leading on this issue or speaking on this issue.
Oh, over time, thank you. And it may be a little bit different from foreign policy. Over time, a group of us have been very active in making sure that state dollars are there to protect places of worship, and that might be under threat because of the anti-Semitism. And that is the role that I played, and I appeared at a number of events to do that. I early on, when I was really kind of new to New Haven, was part of the group that went to the then mayor to ask for the land to put the Holocaust Memorial there. And so that I was very concerned always that there be adequate dollars around to provide protection at times that there may be very inflammatory, hateful actions. And I think that's an appropriate use of my power.
Thank you, Representative Dillon. Justin Farmer.
Yeah, when I ran 6 years ago, right, I did not know much about Gaza, Palestine, Israel, And it was briefly explained to me, and as I had a conversation with the man on the door about me being DSA, I am not for subjugation of anyone, right? And so whether it is right, I'm going to tell the truth, what I believe to be the truth, whether it's for me or against me, but it will be consistent, right? As Malcolm X said. So the issue for me, right, when I was having this conversation with one of the elders on the door, I was like, listen, my partner's Jewish, right? I have been doing tech support for Mending Binyan the last 3 or 4 years, right? We have Shabbats, we go to Shabbats, right? High holidays we set up in Edgerton Park through me organizing.
10 seconds.
And so for me, the question is, as we talk about this, if my kids who will potentially be mixed are out there, will we protect them equally around their Jewish identity as well as their Black identity?
Thank you, Justice Farmer. Okay, now to get back to something a little closer to home about transportation. I've got 2 great questions submitted by the inimitable DFA New Haven Twitter account. Generally, I'd love to hear about transportation priorities, but I'm going to read them because I'd love to hear your thoughts on BRT and microtransit. But DFA New Haven. Okay, so DFA New Haven asks, what changes to the proposed bus rapid transit corridor along Whaley Avenue would you advocate for, or to the system in general? And do you think the state of Connecticut should continue to fund microtransit services such as Via New Haven, or do they cannibalize fixed route service in places like New Haven? So State Representative Dillon, I'd love for you to start, both to talk about what you think of the state's $300 million plan, kind of express route bus rapid transit program, and what your transportation priorities are, if we want to.
I believe it was Mayor Hart who began the Move New Haven, that had a number of elements that we're looking at. I had worked with her as a state legislator to try to get a fixed route system between Southern and Union Station. And so I tend to be a fan of the fixed route system for all kinds of reasons, economic development being one of them. Over time, the number of times that we have looked at this issue, the same issues come up with DOT and with our own geography, and that is the choke point in Westville Village, which at one point the Department of Transportation wanted to eliminate. They wanted to cut out Westville Village so we could have a 5 or 6 way lane. That was before my time as a state legislator. So I support the concept, but I think there are going to be, I'm looking forward to the challenges of what's going to happen in Upper Whaler.
Thank you, Representative Dillon. Justin Farmer, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the BRT plan and Via New Haven or any other transportation policy priorities. You got it.
Yeah, Via New Haven should be expanded, right? New York City has the dollar van, those are very successful, last mile connection. As a person who knows our streets, sidewalks intimately, shout out to the One Wheel, right? Transportation is important. Alice Wong, right, had a visibility, rest in power, right? Transportation is a disability justice issue, right? It is the ability to be in community and to build community. So for me, yes, the VITA is important. BRT, most of the people who made decisions do not actually ride the bus. As a person who's been shaping the BRT before it even came to New Haven, right? That's part of the reason why it is between Hampton and New Haven. It is a regional project, right? Because we need regionalization because people cross borders.
Thank you, Justin Farmer. What do you think of the BRT proposal as is, and tell me about your transportation priorities?
I think that figuring out how to make sure that BRT works the best as well as possible for our community is one of the key priorities that our state legislator in the 92nd District needs to be focused on, because the system is going to go down Whaley Avenue, and that's what it's planned to do, and it's going to have a huge impact on our small businesses, on how all of us get around, and on the safety of our streets as well. Last week, I organized a walk down Fountain Street with a whole bunch of neighbors to talk about BRT, to talk about the state roads in our district as well that need to be made safer. A whole bunch of folks here who were there. And we had a great conversation. I think that we need much more of that, making sure that the community's voices are heard in this project. Because I have a lot of concerns about the fact, one, I think that frequency is not being emphasized enough as the project is taking shape. We're supposed to invest $300 million in this project, and I think we need to make sure that it actually increases ridership. And as well, I've been fighting to make buses free in our state for 2022, and I think that's something that should come with this project as well.
Thank you very much. Let's say Justin Farmer, I think this is your third.
This is my third right at the apple.
There we go.
Right? Inside joke from Hampton. Anyhow, yeah, Yale needs to get rid of the shuttle, right? The Yale shuttle is 20 years past what it needs to do. They're using diesel buses. They're 20 years old. It's clogging up the congestion. It's bad for our environment. We know how much fast and free buses cost, and Yale could have that as a descendant of slavery. It'd be nice if we got something like a chicken dinner from Yale University. See, our institution. That's just me.
This is going to be the last question for everyone before our lightning round, and we're starting with Justin Farmer, then Eli Zayed, and then Representative Dillon. It's about immigration enforcement, and the relationship between the city, the state, and the Trump administration. So, Justin, I think that many behaviors, many people all over the country are terrified of masked armed federal agents detaining parents, separating them from their kids, killing people in the street. I think just the immigration crackdown in the Trump administration is greatly distressing to lots of Americans, lots of behaviors. The state legislature voted recently to further limit where ICE can make arrests, where they can detain people. I wonder if you could speak to what your priorities if elected would be around help shaping the relationship between the state, the city, and the federal government around ICE. And I should also note that the Trump administration is currently suing the state of Connecticut to try to overturn the Trust Act and suing the city of New Haven to try to overturn a welcoming city executive order. So if there's anything that you think should be strengthened in the Trust Act, I'd love to hear. But generally, immigration policy relationship with the Trump administration.
Yeah, thank you for the question. By the time I was 11, 3 of my family members had been deported and incarcerated to Jamaica. Right? We are here because of economic violence that the West, the U.S., brought to Jamaica because of socialism. People couldn't mind their own business. Right? Gun violence has continued and proliferated because of those consequences. Our inability to talk about race and anti-Black racism created the Chinese Exclusion Act. We have always dealt with race and racism, right? So when we're talking about the Trust Act, for me, right, we pit our Black and brown brothers and sisters, right, from clean slate legislation, right, expunging records after 7 years. But then, if they're undocumented, right, and they don't have that documentation, it pits them against each other. But then we'll put up flock cameras everywhere to record everyone. Policing and immigration are the same issue, and for those who are waking up to it, welcome to the conversation. We welcome you and the support to actually deal with it.
Thank you, Mr. Farmer. We also immigration and relationship with the Trump administration for immigration enforcement.
I think we all share the feeling of seeing what's been happening around the country right in the last year and a half, and going back before that as well. Just the horror that we've seen, that we've all felt, seeing videos of armed masked agents taking people off the street, and including in our own community. And I think this is a moment where our state government needs to do everything possible to stand between our community and our neighbors and the federal government. And the law that was passed by the legislature was a good first step. The problem is going to be enforcing it. And I think what we need right now, more than just those laws on the book, are resources to support our immigrant neighbors. So I've been working with immigrant advocates in the community and talking about a proposal that I will fight for in the legislature to create a constitutional rights defense fund, which will provide resources to make sure that families in our city have access to lawyers so they can fight back and fight back against the un-American abuses and the cruelty that we're seeing from the Trump administration. So I think we need to put our money where our mouth is to protect our neighbors right now.
Thank you. Maybe the vote that the state legislature took this year and that you took, and also what you think the role of the state should be.
And I would say, well, it's terrifying to know that our own government is snatching children to use as bait to catch their parents. And they're also slowing down the visa applications and slowing down green cards. So it's a cliche, but it's easy if you think, well, it's not me. It's very quickly is spreading to threaten a lot of people. I think that the action we took could have included, health clinics. There are a couple of safe spaces that we omitted, but we did include hospitals. So that's important. We have to do everything we can. Because right now, they're treating visa overstays as criminal. So I support trying to help set up a fund for legal defense. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and let's do a lightning round before closing statements, and I will go down the line. Pat, second. Yes, yeah, of course. No? Okay, so maybe I'll go quickly down, just down this way, starting with Pat, Justin, you and I for each one. Ranked choice voting, yes or no?
Yes.
Or yeah, I think everyone just pipe in quickly. You know what, that's the lightning round piece. Okay, yes, yes. Ned Lamont or Josh Elliott?
Pass.
I think I'm probably voting for Josh Elliott.
Ned Lamont or Josh Elliott?
Well, I think Josh wants me out of office. Doesn't he want an age cap? So I haven't spoken to the governor or endorsed anybody, but I'm leaning to the governor, absolutely. To Josh's call.
Favorite restaurant or place to buy food in the 92nd District?
I love all my children equally.
Nothing, no one's gonna say anything.
I've been spending a lot of time in the Hill with my friends, Miss Maxine and Lisa and Sandra are here, and Caliente Deli on the corner of.
Wait, hold on, this is lightning round. Just say the word. The deli. Okay, wonderful. Lightning round. Favorite place to buy food in the 92nd District? Favorite restaurant?
Pardon me?
Favorite restaurant in the 92nd District?
I love them all.
All right, bravo is the correct answer. All right, publicly owned power or better regulated monopolies?
Publicly owned. Power to the people.
Publicly owned.
I think state publicly owned would make a lot of sense.
Okay, this is not in the district, but I'm sure the state is going to figure out whether or not to send a lot of money to it. English Station should be turned into a pool or no? Wait, what was that?
I would say Fix Forest Road, I got you the money in 2022, and the city hasn't done a thing about it.
No.
All right, the last two. If you could make one change to Whaley Avenue to make it less crazy, what would it be?
I mean, I think one of the things that could be done to Whaley Avenue, right? Am I being loud or quiet? Or quiet or not? I mean, for Whaley Avenue, right, there can be definite improvements.
Oh wait, hold on, lightning round. Wait, yeah, that's right, lightning round. Just say one thing. There's bouncy castle.
Safer streets.
That's right. This isn't a good lightning round question, but anyone want to say something about it?
I think we need to improve the safety at the intersection of Whaley and Fountain.
Okay, Whaley and Fountain.
I would say Whaley and Blake.
Whaley, okay. And then one last question. What should happen to the former community action agency, both at the corner of Whaley and Fitch?
Yeah, give it to the community. Land bank.
I think it should be affordable housing and locally owned small businesses.
What do you think?
Are you asking for a use?
Yeah, just Best case scenario, what would you like to see that?
Demolish it. No, actually, there's something there that should be preserved, I think, but not much.
All right, thank you. Everyone made it through the questions and the lightning round. All right, so we've got 2-minute closing statements. Since we started with Pat went to Justin, Eli to start, we're going to begin with Eli, go to Justin, and then Pat to close us out. So Eli, you've got 2 minutes to talk.
Thank you so much again for being here. Thank you, Tom, for moderating. Thank you, Representative Dillon and Mr. Farmer, for a wonderful civil conversation. When I was growing up here in this city, I first got involved in the community, in government of any kind, as an intern for our Congresswoman, Rosa DeLauro. And I'd go down to her office after school and answer the phones. And I remember very distinctly getting a phone call from a veteran who told me in a slow voice over the phone that he was sleeping in his car and was scared and didn't know where to go. And being in that position of listening to our neighbor who was going through that made me want to get more involved in this city and to do as much as I possibly could to serve our community. And that's what I've been doing for basically the past 10 years since that moment. I spent 6 years on the Board of Alders working as hard as I could to build more affordable housing, to pass the Downtown for All legislation, up at the state capitol, running the Progressive Caucus, and then at Connecticut Voice for Children, fighting to expand access to child care, to raise the fines on bad landlords, to protect tenants across our state. And I'm running for the state legislature right now because I believe that Connecticut can do more and be better in this moment. This is a moment that calls on all of us to step up and fight with everything we have to protect our neighbors, to fund our schools, to bring down the cost of living. And I think we need some new energy and some new ideas, and somebody's gonna be on the ground every single day, knocking on doors, bringing people together at community meetings, on doorsteps, at our favorite restaurants, bring people together around the solutions to these big challenges. And that is the work that I am so excited to have the opportunity to do, and I'll be so honored to earn your vote. Thank you.
Justin Farmer, you have 2 minutes.
The other night I was walking from the hill and one of the Mandy landlords crashed out because I was talking to tenants, talking to the aunts on the porch. And he came down, drove up in his car, yelled at us, told us that he owned the block and that he would be evicting people tomorrow, right? I recorded it because I'm not gonna threaten my community. What are you talking about, man? You sound crazy. Right, walked home late at night, got to the bridge, and I was like, animals are out here, weird people might come up. All right, I'm safe though. Got to Westville, and I actually became terrified. And I flashed back to the young man about 20 years ago who was in this community with my niece, who happened to be white, right? And people called the police on me, right, as a child, because they thought I was stealing my niece's bike. Because being black is apparently a crime. And despite knowing many people in this room, despite being known in this community, right, I was scared of a community that I've been in, that I've grown up in, that has raised me, that has nurtured me. And then I told myself I was being silly. And then some of our children, right, rolled past me in a pickup truck and yelled nigga at me, right? Now, I'm fine. We gotta talk to our kids, right? They see reckless things. It's not a big deal. But 10 years from now, when I have children, can y'all guarantee me that that will not be the same conversation? Right? I can show you better, I can tell you. You can go to a website, find an interactive map to vote all across the state and know who represents you and how to get in contact with them. You can find my history there. You can find the platforms there. I am building, right? We are planting the seeds of change so we can be rooted in a better tomorrow. That's what it is.
Thank you very much. We've heard tonight a range of questions and a number of claims during the campaign so far. But very little of what we do in Hartford is done alone. We do that as a team. And also what we do in Hartford apparently it's not always visible. Because I wasn't walking on the street or going indoors. I was sitting in public hearings. I was sitting in meetings with the executive branch, and I'll single out, I could list all the things that we were able to get, and a colleague of mine is here tonight that took some negotiation. But I'll just mention one where I really had the authority over the policy and the money, and that was over violence prevention. And that was, we have an Office of Injury Prevention, which, and I know some people have, which I enacted alone, actually. I was the only sponsor, but I needed support decades ago. Congress then banned research into gun violence, which meant that, but we had written it, first of all, I got it passed because I kept the word gun out of the title, and because it would have set people off. And secondly, we were collecting data, mandated data from the hospitals, so we were able to use that data to prevent sexual assault, because it was injury prevention, not only guns. Years later, the ban was lifted, and also we used state dollars. To his credit, 2 years ago, Governor Lamont put dollars into that violence prevention, and I negotiated grants for gun violence prevention. And that's the kind of thing that is invisible, but we did it.